Hello, beautiful souls. Welcome back to part three of the Nikki Casa podcast. This is our final episode for what the hell went on in my relationship and why did I break up and how am I healing and dealing and working through my feelings. I'm really excited to dive into part three today because it's sort of like this wrapping up of these series where I've been really opening up and diving deeper into what was going on in my relationship. And although I am really enjoying being able to use this platform to share my story and my voice and my healing journey through it all, I have so many other things I really want to bring into the podcast space that I've been like planning for you all, which is exciting and coming up. But it's like, I really want to honor the part three and really close these three parts with what's been going on the past like 6 weeks. So today we're going to be covering womb healing and why we need to work on healing our wombs on a very spiritual level after breakups, why I'm still so angry at my ex, and that's not what you think, accessing sacred emotions for healing, intergenerational trauma healing and epigenetics, bit of sciencey stuff for all your science nerds out there, and then addressing feelings of wanting to get back together with my ex. Ooh, spicy topics today. Let's dive in. So the past 6 weeks recording these podcasts have literally felt like a 6 week non-stop plant medicine ceremony. Like, oh my gosh, the amount of healing that has come from being able to use this platform to share and express my vulnerabilities and my truths have honestly been like this medicine and healing to be able to express all of this. Specifically when working with my anger and some of the anger that I've still been feeling towards Ryan. And it's really important to understand our relationship with anger and rage as women. As women, we have learned that accessing rage and anger is actually like an unsafe thing to do. I want you to think of anger and rage being in this room, in your subconscious, in your body, where we shove all of this unexpressed anger. We shove it inside this little room in our bodies and we close the door and we lock it up and put like that yellow crime scene tape all over the door. Danger, do not enter, anger, rage. As if it's like this out of bounds area in our body, like a secret room in a haunted house. And nobody's allowed to enter and see what's in my room. And we do this because as children, like girls are taught to be anything but angry. Like, don't be angry, don't be upset, don't make a fuss, don't be fussy. And like boys are taught to be angry and smash things and hit each other and punch and do boxing. And like boys have been taught in some ways, not enough, how to access their anger. But for a lot of women, we were taught that as little girls, it was actually like a really bad thing to be angry. Like, don't be angry. And I know that this sounds really funny because like for a lot of us, we might be thinking, well, like anger, Nikki, is like not a good emotion. And I really understand that. My representations of anger growing up was my first experience was seeing my mum and my dad be angry at each other. And it was eventually led to like separation. right? They're divorced. So seeing them angry at each other was like, oh no, like something bad's about to happen. They're about to have a fight. And then when I was a teenager, or, you know, a very young teen, my second representation of really understanding my relationship to anger was from my brothers. And in particular, two of my brothers didn't have a very good relationship with their anger. And they would often project it and punch things and take it out on my mom. And my mom bore a lot of the other side of their anger and resentment. And sometimes, you know, they would be violent, not towards, you know, physically towards my mom, but, you know, throw things and hurt themselves. And so my representation of anger growing up has really been like, anger is not a good emotion. And rage is like a very unsafe emotion. And so it's no wonder we've taken this emotion and we've like shoved it into this room in our subconscious to say like, no, 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 this is a bad emotion to have. This is a not safe emotion to have. And did you know that women only, like, I would say, I can't actually tell you exactly, but it would have been like maybe 150, 200 years ago, when women didn't have the ability to be good little girls and not kick up a fuss and storm, that they were actually given a diagnosis for this. And the diagnosis would actually lead to, if untreated, being locked up and medicated. You might have heard of the term hysteria. So if women were overly emotional and that the treatment, which was very questionable treatment, electroshock therapy and all sorts of other forms of therapy and medication didn't work, they might have been locked up, which is insane to think that. And to take this one step further, we're going to get a little bit woo-woo here, strap in just for a moment. But only 300 years ago, women were burnt, like literally chained up, tied up to a pole and set on fire for expressing themselves in ways that were, quote, untamed. And the last execution for, they call it witchcraft, but I think what they really were talking about were women that they couldn't control and tame, was in England, and it took place in 1716. And that was only 308 years ago. That's like 3 generations, only 300 years ago. If, you know, most people live to 100, most people don't, but if some people do, that's 3 generations. And between 40,000 and 60,000 women that they know of were executed in public. Like, just consider the insanity of executing people nowadays because they were, you know, accessing rage and anger and untamed in their spirits and wild. And it's important to talk about this because traumas that happen to our ancestors, like to our grandmothers, can be passed down through intergenerational trauma. We look at the study of epigenetics, we look at the study of trauma and what happens in the nervous system. Trauma is passed down through the lineage. So what our grandmothers experienced as trauma, we experience as a part of our code, like a coding in our DNA, and it helps us to survive. That's how we've been able to evolve through millions of years. So essentially, like what you do in this lifetime will affect the next 7 generations. Yes, 7. So within your nervous system, you have your grandmothers, 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 including your mum, all of their trauma. And so if, as women, we haven't been taught to express ourselves and be angry and have the ought to express rage and anger, because once upon a time, like, you might have been burnt for that, to speak up, talk about what you're angry about, injustice, being dishonored. women having their bodies objectified or used or raped. Like, we have to understand that it's not just about, oh, I should speak up and talk about things that I'm not happy about. And if I don't, it's just because I'm dealing with my own inner shadows. It's like, no, there's intergenerational trauma here, that when you are speaking your truth or getting on a platform like this and speaking up and using your voice, your nervous system will say, hey, like, this kind of feels scary, because we've been taught that it's unsafe to do that in this lifetime and in our grandmother's lifetimes. So there's a lot of factors at play here. So please know that, like, in your own healing, if you're like, Nikki, I find it so freaking hard to talk about my trauma, to talk about my healing, to talk about things that are really vulnerable and scary and edgy for me, understand what's at play here. It's not just about you not feeling brave or not being fearless or not being courageous. Like, no, there are some big things that when we step up and share our voice, that trauma-wise, we are healing. As I've been healing, all of this anger and rage has been coming up into my body. And my very first response has been like, no, that's like, it's not okay for me to feel my anger. It's not okay for me to express my anger. And I realized that I had these emotions in my body that I had been suppressing. And as humans, we have to feel all of our emotions. Emotions are like colors of the rainbow. We have our favorites, like my favorite color of the rainbow is green. And I also love the color pink. But it doesn't mean that orange or purple are bad colors. I just have my favorites. And the same is true for emotions. Like, my favorite emotions are joy. I think a lot of people's favorite emotions are love, joy, happiness. But it doesn't mean that sadness and anger are bad emotions. They're just emotions that feel really heavy in the body, and we haven't really been taught how to deal with. Because remember, we're told, don't feel sad, don't feel angry. Whenever the emotion comes up, we're not taught how to navigate or manage the emotion. We're taught that feeling the emotion is bad and that we shouldn't feel it. And when we think of the universe or our creator or whoever created the human experience, call it God, call it the universe, call it source energy, call it spirit, whatever you believe in, there is a reason why we feel these emotions. Like, anger tells us where our boundaries are being crossed. Like, if you are angry because somebody has disrespected you, that is a messenger saying, hey, that's not okay. Someone disrespected me, and I ought to have an angry emotion arise in my body to tell me where my boundaries are being crossed. Otherwise, how am I ever going to teach someone what is not okay and what I will and won't stand for? So anger is an important signal and messenger trying to tell you something. And if we learn that anger is just this emotion that's just bad, we're never really listening to these messengers that are trying to say to us, hey, when he talks to you like that, when she says that, when he treats you like that, that is not okay. So we need to start changing our relationship with anger. Because in my relationship with my ex, when we moved to Bali and things started to shift energetically in the relationship, there were all of these moments where I either felt unsafe or dishonored, and I didn't speak my truth. So as all these memories have like flooded back in the past, like especially the past 4 to 6 weeks, I've been remembering all of these moments where I've been dishonored. I felt so much anger towards Ryan. How could someone I have loved treated me in those ways? And this part of me has felt so angry, where there were times where I felt like I couldn't even sunbake without being met with his resentment, or I couldn't go to a gym or sit in a unisex sauna without this like lecture on him not trusting me. And it was like I had to hide my body and not express myself. Like if you're watching YouTube, if you're listening to this on YouTube, like I couldn't put on a top like this and not feel like, oh my God, what if I make Ryan feel uncomfortable and we're out in public and men see me? And I never needed to question my sexuality. I never needed to question how I express my body. And yet I did. And what I began to realize was I never took a stand for myself. I never said, I won't stand for you speaking to me like this or objectifying my body. Like, you're my king. You're supposed to fucking worship my body, not objectify it. I've lived in this body for 27 years, nearly 28. I know what it's like to be objectified by men, and you are the one man who should never objectify my body. And I never took that stand. So all of this anger has come up, and when anger comes up, we often get taught to project anger. And what I realized was I'm not actually angry at Ryan. He dishonored me. That's true. But I was really angry at myself for not being able to take a stand and express my voice and speak up in those moments. And the truth was, like, I ought to be angry about that. It's okay for me to be angry. There might be people listening and be like, oh no, you shouldn't be angry yourself. It wasn't your fault. And again, we're taking our anger and we're pushing it into this abandoned room in a house and saying, no, 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 do not enter, lock it up. Don't feel your anger. It's bad. And it's okay. Like I have the right to feel angry about the ways that I was treated. And angry at myself and angry at the systemic oppression that's been at play for hundreds of years that I now get to break in my family lineage at myself. And the saying goes, it ran in my family until it ran into me. It ran in my family till it ran into me. And that's where the cycle ends. There's a discernment about anger here that we really need to understand. When we hold on to anger and we push it into this abandoned room in our subconscious and our body and say, out of bounds, don't feel this, rather than actually feeling it, digesting it and letting it go, what happens is that anger becomes a poison. And a poison is like, we drink it and we think the other person gets hurt. So when I'm angry at him, I drink the poison of anger, thinking Ryan gets hurt. We do this all the time. I'm so angry at him, how he treated me, hate him. And anger becomes a poison rather than a power. If you've seen the movie Harry Potter, there's this one movie where they collect these crucifix. And the crucifix are these symbols of power that they have to destroy to defeat Lord Voldemort. And there's this one crucifix, which is a necklace. And they take turns wearing the necklace because when they wear the necklace for too long, the crucifix turns their soul evil and bad. And the same is true for anger. When we hold onto our anger and we push it into this little room and then we project it onto all the people around us, and we use it as a source of blame, rather than using it as a source of power, it actually then disempowers us. It becomes a poison in our lives and for our soul. And eventually this little locked room with all our built up anger eventually bursts at the seam. And so we have women that are walking around filled to the brim with unresolved anger from their past. And it looks really ugly on women, like seeing a woman with unresolved anger, projecting that onto other people. Society calls this archetype the Karen. And I can hear you laughing on the other side. But it's like quite alarming that we have this archetype of women that we call the Karen, but we don't actually address as like a really alarming thing. It's like inside of that woman is a little girl, perfect little child that came out as a baby, and somewhere along the way learned that she had to be angry at the whole world to protect herself. Such a shame. Underneath some of the most angry, wounded people, like men and women, who spend their lives being angry at the world, is just a scared little version of themselves that's filled to the brim, so much pain and sadness, that eventually they couldn't suppress anymore. It became part of their soul. Just like the crucifix that takes over and taints their soul to be evil and bad and mean and angry at the whole world. And that's what happens to our soul when we push and project rather than actually access anger as power. So I want you to understand that we call it sacred rage and sacred anger, so we can start to change our association with these two emotions and use this as a source of healing and power rather than pain and betrayal. Ooh. And just feeling the power in that. So when I started accessing my anger, this little part of me came up. She's like my good little girl. She's like, oh my God, you cannot be angry. You're just going to be good. Don't speak up. Don't talk about it. True series? Oh no. Don't be real. Don't say that. Just be love and light, Nikki. Love and light. Just be happy and love and light. Sit down, shut up, know your place. Be seen, not heard. Nope, don't be seen. Feel familiar? So maybe you have a little good girl in you as well. But when you think about accessing your anger, she's like, don't do that. I'm not an angry person. That's not me. And I realized that the good girl in me wasn't actually trying to be like love and light. She wasn't actually trying to be good. She was silencing my voice, and not just silencing, like strangling me. She's like, no, like, shut up. And really stopping me from stepping into my empowerment. And I want you to think about if there's a part of you that when it comes to setting boundaries or speaking up or saying, hey, I wouldn't stand for that. You cannot speak to me like that. You're supposed to be my friend. You're supposed to be my child, my son, my daughter, my mother, my father, my lover. You cannot speak to me like that. That there's a little part of you that comes up and she's like, That's kind of scary. And just notice her. Don't judge that part of you. Just notice, like, maybe you have the same good girl complex. I want to teach you an exercise that I've done over the past 6 weeks that has been so powerful for me. And if you want, you can do this exercise right now, just listening to the podcast. What it's going to do is allow you to access your sacred rage. It's really easy exercise. I say easy, but it will challenge you a little bit. So it's a 2-part exercise, and you can definitely do the first part now, and maybe the second part you can do in the privacy of your home. But I would recommend just listening to both parts so that you know how to prepare yourself. So if you are in a space where you can close down your eyes, and if you can't close down your eyes, that's okay. If you're out walking, maybe you'd like to sit down, or just imagine as you're out walking, closing down your eyes. And I want you to imagine a version of yourself who is powerful, fierce, and bold. Maybe think back to a moment in your life where you were that, like a goddess or an Amazon princess or a queen, just really strong and embodied. Maybe this image that you can picture takes a form of an animal. Maybe it's like a lion or a leopard, or maybe it's like a bear or a snake. Maybe it's not an animal, but it's like an angel. But the angel has like armor and this beautiful golden sword. Just imagining this version now who is really strong and almost like glowing with this power. Once you see this image of this part of you, I want you to imagine, how would it hold itself? How would it walk? With power, fortitude, certainty, but also like calm and like really clever and super humble too. Like it knows its power and it's not afraid to use the power, but it's not a wild, untamed beast. Powerful yet contained. Just feel that in your body. Maybe your chest opens a little, your shoulders come back. Maybe you breathe a little bit deeper. And you can open your eyes. And so just see that, like, in you is that archetype. Power protector. And you can see it feels very different to the good little girl, hey? In part 2, you might need a private space for this and a pillow. And if you don't have either of this, you can just listen and come back to this exercise later. But I want you to now bring into your mind what makes you feel angry. Maybe it's somebody in your past. And notice that your good girl will arise right now, and she'll be like, I have nothing to be angry about. Love and light. Girl, tell me you've never been judged by a man. Tell me you've never been objectified. Tell me you've never been taken advantage of, or dishonored, or yelled at, or disrespected by the wounded masculine, by your children, by your parents. Maybe even you've been disrespected by the wounded feminine. Maybe there's a person in your past who hurt you, or maybe a person you hate or you feel jealousy towards. Just choose something you feel angry towards. Remember, you're a good little girl. Just acknowledge her and let your power protector be here. Just let your good little girl chill just for a moment. Once you feel that anger arise, call upon your power protector to come forth, armor, strength, and in the privacy of your own space and room, or lounge room, wherever you are, I just want you to unleash this anger now as your power protector, as this lion, this leopard, this bear, this snake, this angel with armor. Unleash your anger with a scream, a yell. You can punch or thump or kick. You can push. And I want you to let your anger out as this power protector. Remember, there is a part of you that's going to come up and say, don't do that. Don't be crazy and wild. It's like, no, this is discern. This is power. When that good little girl arises, just smile at her. Don't judge her. Just be like, I see you, little one. I see a little girl. But it's safe for us to express this energy now. It's safe to let out this emotion so that I don't project it onto myself in my own body or project it onto other people. I don't want to drink this poison anymore. I want to be free from this poison in my body. And if yelling doesn't feel safe for you, if you're like, whoa, Nikki, that's way too edgy, like, no, I cannot do that. I just want you to imagine that all your anger is on a wall in front of you. And I just want you to go find a wall in your room or your house and just place your arms up against the wall and just push. Just push the wall and imagine that you're pushing all of this anger out of your body. At the very least, it is safe for you to just go up to a wall and just push as if you're pushing all of that energy out of your body. And that's it. So as I started to express my anger, I realized, oh my God, it's not that I was angry at Ryan. He was just revealing all of this anger that was already within myself. And I could release and actually get that out of my body. And I was like, holy motherfucking shit, who am I? I'm a fucking warrior. And this is where this is where all of this power has come. This is why I can get in front of a room of women and do public speaking. This is why I can actually stand in the fire and be like, no, I'm not silencing my voice. This is how I've been able to do this work on the podcast. Not by being a good little girl, but by being my powerful archetype, my power protector, which is a serpent. Like a serpent is full of venom. But if you know a snake will slither past you and will not attack you. But when you become a threat, the snake will protect itself. It will pull back and pull up and it'll hiss and it'll say, hey, I have the power and the venom to attack you right now. Test me, I dare you. Like, holy moly, that's so powerful when you think of how powerful snakes are. And they don't just attack straight away like this wild, ferocious beast. No, they pull back and pull up and they hiss and they go, test me, I dare you. I'm just in awe. And then they know that they have the venom to strike at any moment with precision, a silent killer. So when I'm embodied in my archetype, I'll either go for the bear, the lion, but the serpent for me is such a powerful archetype. And I know that I don't need to attack, but I have the power if I need it. And that is just a level of certainty of like, I know I can speak my truth and stand in the fire here. And if people try and burn me, I'm so okay with that because I know my truth. I know my power. So lean into your anger and know that it's okay to be angry. It's not about being angry towards, it's just about expressing your anger. And know you can express your anger and not be it. Like I'm talking about anger right now and telling you the things I'm angry at without yelling at you. So you don't have to be what women have been taught to be and socialized to be, which is good and sweet and quiet and perfect. Like you can be good and also bold, sweet and also a little bit snaky, like snake-like. And the only way we heal is allow ourselves to do what our grandmothers literally couldn't. Scream at the top of our lungs and be heard and really speak our truth. Womb healing might feel like it's something that is just done in the silence of your belly. But this is really like a lot of what womb healing is accessing these emotions deep within the body. I've been healing my womb for the past year and a half, and it's been such a wild journey working with my the wounding in my womb. And I never really had a very good experience with my periods growing up, and sometimes I still don't, and it's really normal. We don't have a lot of culture in Australia, so we don't have rite of passages, for example, as women. So it's quite it's understandable that we haven't had a lot of sacredness around our wombs as women. And especially in Australia, we just don't really have any of that culture. And one thing that has been so important to me in my breakup has been to actually do the work on myself, including the scary, icky, deep work, the womb work that sometimes feels really big. And when it comes to the womb, I realized that, well, I kind of used her, I shut her down when I was in Bali last year with Ryan. We only really had, we didn't really have a lot of intercourse while we were there. And I realized it was because although I didn't feel I could really open my body to him, I didn't feel safe in his masculine grounding, there was also some deeper things to it. And I was really withholding that space to stay in control of my body and experience. So now that I've been on this coming back to myself journey, I've been connecting to her and tuning into her and acknowledging her and being with her rather than just shutting her off. And I had the most beautiful experience last week where I woke up and I had this period pain. And this was strange for me because I don't get period pains at all, ever. So last Tuesday, I woke up and I had this period pain, and I just knew oh, okay, there's something that's going to be coming up this week, that's for sure. But I wasn't quite sure how to work with the pain or what to do about it. It sort of just came in the middle of the morning and it was really, really bad. And I went away and didn't come back for the rest of the week. So on Saturday, I took myself on this beautiful date and really wanted to acknowledge my womb in just some way. And I just trusted that it would come to me really organically throughout the date. I wrote this journal passage I want to share with you because, it's really powerful. I took myself on a lineage today that called me in meditation. And while in meditation, this little voice said, go visit the crystals. I know, so woo-woo, Nikki. As soon as I arrived at this beautiful crystal castle down in Byron Bay, I was thrusted deep into a garden of treasures, and the amount of beauty was so overwhelming at times. I wanted to spend hours in just one of the 50 spots. In each experience, I received something new, something different. But the labyrinth walk was by far the most astounding of all. As I approached the labyrinth, there were 5 layers of a spiral. And in the center of the spiral was this huge crystal. And the rules are only one is allowed to enter at a time. And as you walk the layers of the labyrinth, there is a healing process that takes place. Immediately, I knew that my womb was saying, oh my gosh, go in. The calling came from deep within my belly, my womb. She was crying. Let him go, I said. No, let her go, my womb answered. Let the woman and the little girl go who is still holding on so you may be reborn, she said. As I began walking through the spiral, I felt my bare feet connecting deeper to the earth. I was held by Grandmother Earth, and she whispered, go inwards, child. The deeper into the spiral I walked, the louder her voice and the stronger my connection. I began to recite out loud all of the behavioral traits and tendencies and ways of being the little girl and old me embodied. That led to the disconnection of my heart, my body, my womb, and the intuitive knowing that I was being dishonored and yet didn't speak my truth. As I said each out loud, they were summoning the little girl within, summoning that good, sweet, innocent girl to step forth with courage, to be mourned like a funeral. She wept at the closing of self, the closing of my soul, the closing of my womb, my heart, and my voice. But she knew it was time to say goodbye. As I reached the center of the labyrinth, I sat on the soil beneath my feet, fully connecting my root chakra to come down into my own center with the earth. I closed my eyes and I said a prayer in silence. And as I opened my eyes, I began to laugh. Energy anew emerging through. And it was as if I felt myself give birth. Birthing the true essence of Nikki to step forth now, to rise now. I rose and began descending the labyrinth, With each layer and each step, I cast out spells with my voice, announcing out loud to the universe who the birth of Nikki really is. Nikki, 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 and what my name truly means to me now. The woman I choose to be. With every lap, the intensity rose, and I knew in my body I was already her before meeting the exit. I felt gratitude oozing through my heart, and my arms began to span and rise either side of my body as if I had wings and was now floating like a goddess whose steps are bathed in certainty, precision, and complete trust in the power that she embodies. As I approached the exit, I knew I was already her. When I left the labyrinth, I had this little giggle because last time I came to this crystal palace was with Ryan, and I never saw the labyrinth. I don't know if I saw it and I didn't acknowledge it, or I saw it and I read the rules and there was too many people. So I was like, oh, well, Ryan's not going to patiently wait. And so like, don't worry about it. Just like skip this thing. And I just wasn't ready for it. But I laughed because I said, of course, like I wasn't ready. But the entirety of my being was ready last week. And I knew as soon as I entered this beautiful palace. And so how beautiful that I was able to experience this healing for my womb. And what I thought I needed to do was like let go of Ryan, but I really needed to let go of what I was holding it onto. Womb healing is like such an incredible journey that you can't really like put a timeline on or put a perfect structure around. Like this is the step 1, step 2, step 3 process. So a lot of women reach out to me and ask me like, Nikki, I want to do more womb healing. Like, where should I start? What should I do? And it's really difficult to give women advice because it's such an intuitive guided journey. Like I had no idea that I was going to experience this labyrinth descending death rebirth on Saturday. It just called to me intuitively, like from deep within my own pelvic bowl. And I guess that I could recommend that if that's a new journey for you, womb healing, just start by listening to that space and seeing if you can connect to any feelings or voices, sort of similar if you were to connect to your heart. And also start to connect more to your associations to your cycles. I used to feel like getting my cycle was a nuisance. Like, oh, here we go again. Like, do I have enough tampons? Am I going to get blood on my sheets? Like, you know, is I going to have a heavy flow? Like it was this annoying feeling of getting my cycle. And I realized like, whoa, I've been sending so much like annoying, bad energy towards my cycles. No wonder I haven't had a good relationship with my womb for all these years. So these would be the first places I would always recommend a client to start is really just start to establish a loving relationship with your womb. And the magic and the healing will really come from that, but we have to create like a garden bed of fertile soil before we start planting stuff. The soil has to be like tended to with love and not neglected. if you want to plant things in it and expect it to grow and be this beautiful space. So just take some time to just acknowledge your womb now. And even if you've had your womb cut from your body, that's still an energy center. It's still a place in your body that you can honor with love. And just love that space, like energetically. Like not having a womb doesn't make you less than either. Still, your womanness is still an essence. It's an energy. It's not dependent on your physicalness, right? We actually want to get beyond the physical and really look at the energy, the emotion, and the love that we're directing towards that space. And there have been some really beautiful books that I have read as well. There's this one book called Pussy Reclamation. I'm giggling because I can hear my mom right now being like, oh my God, you can't say that on a podcast. Isn't it funny that we have like these associations of like naughty words, like pussy? So you can read that book, or there are other books as well that if you would like to learn more about like the burning woman and what our grandmothers went through being burnt for expressing their truth, there is a book called Burning Woman, which I really recommend. It's quite beautiful. And then from there, honestly, like if you typed into Google like womb healing books, there's some really beautiful ones. I've also been reading a book called Womb Wisdom, but that one's quite advanced. So if you are new to womb healing, that might not be the place I would start. I would start with Pussy Reclamation and then go from there. The Womb Wisdom one is really deep and it is quite difficult to read. The language they use is quite advanced. So you might be an overachiever and be like, I'm going to start there, but it might not serve you because you might not understand it. So there's levels to it. I would recommend starting with the other book and then working your way up from there. And reach out to me if you want to know more about womb healing, and I would love some more guidance. We do a lot of this work in our coaching space for women, and that way you can be a part of a sisterhood who's really claiming that space as well. Because it might not be, you know, your usual Friday night cocktail chat with your girlfriends, right? Oh, this is why I love this podcast, because I can just talk about whatever I want. I love it. So good. Okay, so all of my healing has been such a journey. Like I've been learning so many things about myself in the past like 5 months. I've been learning where I haven't been loving myself fully and where I was dishonoring myself in a lot of ways. And that's not for me to start having a pity party. It's about me claiming responsibility over my healing and looking at, okay, well, where will I break the cycle now so that in my next relationship, I never dishonor myself again, or I know what to look out for. So it's not about being like, oh, Nikki, you're being hard on yourself. It's like, no, I'm not doing this from the lens of self-hate. I'm doing this from the lens of self-empowerment and being able to take responsibility, like spiritual responsibility for my patterns and my contribution in how the relationship led to the dishonoring. And I think we need to start taking responsibility for our input and our contribution to relationships that might become narcissistic or toxic, and go, how do I break this cycle and what's the mirror within me? I've also been able to now like set a new standard in my life because I've been taking ownership. And this new standard now, cool. Like I know what I will not accept in relationships ever again, including friendships. I can set a standard for boundaries now. And as soon as somebody crosses them, I can call them up and go, hey, I've noticed that I felt really disrespected when you said this. And I know you're not trying to be disrespectful, but I felt disrespected, and I need you to honor that when you share that, when you talk about my body like that, that it feels disrespectful. And if you continue to objectify, even if you think it's a joke, that there's going to be consequences to that, including boundaries. And be able to have, again, calling upon your power protector. Call upon your archetype to have those conversations. Because the good little girl is not going to be the one to do it. I can tell you right now, it's going to be your powerful parts. And I think like a lot of people need closure in relationships when they break up. You don't need closure with your ex. Like closure comes from seeing the relationship for how it truly was, a teacher and a lesson. And also seeing your ex for who they truly were. I don't mean like they were a bad person and oh my God, like he was actually somebody who dishonored you and you were blinded. Like, no, I don't mean that. That's your anger talking right now, projecting and blaming. I mean, just see them as someone who was a teacher. Like when I think of Ryan, I don't hate him. And I'm not angry at him. I just kind of use it as a hook to get you in to keep listening. Like, but I realized it was more the anger at myself, you know, but Ryan has brought so much awareness into my world. And all of that has now been an initiation for me to heal. Heal the relationship with my good girl. I didn't realize how I was people pleasing still. Because I've done work on my people pleaser. And I was like, oh my God, Nikki, but in a romantic relationship, your people pleaser went undetected. Wow. So I got to realize that in my healing journey and now do the work on it. Work on my anger, access sacred rage, connect more to my womb. All of that would not have been possible, maybe, without meeting him. Like, I can't know that. I can only be grateful and see that my time with him was actually a gift. I'm not saying that what happened was okay, but I'm choosing not to look at a time in my life walking around projecting anger and hate and drinking this poison to taint my soul. I choose to see it as a gift, as a teacher, to guide me to the kind of love that I know is out there, and a man that, when I'm ready, will be awaiting me. I've been able to learn what true love looks like and what kind of man that I'm going to choose to bring into my life. Breakups can be one of our greatest teachers and lessons. A breakup will show you your shadows. They will show you your wounds that you have yet to heal. Maybe even your intergenerational trauma. And breakups can be a source of deep transformation if you're willing to do the work. Because if you are, you're willing to be with all of that, the wounds, the patterns, the shadows, the mirror, the triggers, you will discover one of the most incredible relationships. And it'll be the one with yourself, with your own heart, and for women, with your own pelvic bowl and womb space. So what's next for me? Well, my integration at the moment has really been to look at how I'm experiencing life. There's been so much grief and pain and sadness and anger and rage. I'm like, Nikki, you need to experience some blood of love and joy and fun. And I'm really leaning away from the concept that I'm this constant project to be worked on and fixed. Like, I don't want to live my life like that. And I don't want the women I work with to live their life like that. Like, I don't believe in that. And I think we eventually need to get out of this idea of personal development and like constantly working on shadows. Like, where's my wounding? Where's my wounding? Like, we need to eventually get to a place where we are seeing ourselves as whole. Otherwise, like, you're creating a trauma bond with personal development, literally. Let's not do that. And I know that there are personal development junkies out there that go from personal development event to personal development event to podcast, program to program, like looking for more things within yourself that you can heal so that you can have a cathartic release and a breakthrough and get that dopamine of breaking through a wound. But you need to eventually get to a point in your healing where you stop doing that and start seeing yourself as whole. Otherwise, you're like creating a trauma bond with these events and with these spaces and just looking for a space where you can talk about your past over and over and over. My integration at the moment has now been, how can I lead a life with beauty, grace, love, and truth? And choosing to lead and choosing to be in love. And when sadness comes up, not identifying with it and being like, oh, I'm so sad. Like just observing it as a sensation in the body and then choosing to lead with love. There is a moment to acknowledge, to release and express and feel. And there's also a moment to choose, but how do I want to experience my life? What do I actually want to be living in? Do I keep wanting to live in pain? Do I want to keep living in guilt? Do I want to keep living in anger and grief? No. I want to live in love and abundance and fun and joy. So we need to make decisions that are actually aligned in that. Like, you need to choose it. You can't wait to feel good to do things that make you feel good. And that's why, like, I'm really dating myself. Like, every weekend, I'm taking myself on a solo date. I'm like, I'm choosing to be in love, no matter how I feel on a Saturday. If I feel tired, I'm choosing to be in moments of love. Or I feel sad, I'm going to choose to still be in moments of joy. And that's how we create devotion to our hearts. Like, you being devoted to your heart is choosing to see love. And I've noticed my morning meditations have really shifted from this 10-minute, like, tick the box, to these really deep sessions of connection with myself. Some mornings I sit at my altar for an hour and a half. And every morning I've been sitting at my altar, which used to be just 10 minutes, and then I start my day and do my reading. I've been sitting there for an hour now. I'll sage and smudge, do meditations, connect to my body, my womb, maybe some cacao. And I have noticed that there have been so much beauty in my life now. Oh my gosh, I don't have enough time to share it all. But it has been such a gift to turn my energy back towards myself with this devotional love. And the only way we can meet a man and break cycles from our pasts and our exes is if we do it from a place of wholeness. Like, we have to be whole. We can't get into a new relationship with, like, this idea that they're going to fulfill my loneliness or fulfill my needs. And so as I learn to fully fulfill the needs of my heart, I so trust that I'm going to break cycles, and one day when I'm ready, attract a conscious, masculine pillar of support and integrity and warriorship and truth and leadership. And if you're single and that's a journey for you, I trust as you lean into your healing in this space and you devote yourself to loving yourself, that you will too. I want to finish by just thanking you so much for being a part of the Nikki Casa podcast series, and I so look forward to expanding the topics of discussion now to more beautiful things. So message me if you've got a request, if you want to know more about certain things, business, relationships, womb healing, all of it, just let me know. If you are interested in doing some coaching, you can head to my Instagram and click the link in my bio and put in an application. We have intakes for May and June opening up. So if you'd like to come join this space, join this sisterhood, do some deep healing, this space is waiting you and calling to you. And if you are in the Gold Coast, keep an eye out, because I will be releasing the first release early bird tickets to my event, which is going to be in September 28th and 29th of this year. So you can get your hands on those discounted tickets. So keep an eye out for that on my Instagram. They'll be dropping very soon. But until then, like and subscribe if you're on YouTube, and it would mean the absolute world if you could leave me a review on Spotify or on podcast. Do your thing, send me some love so we can reach more women and help bring this work to their ears, to their hearts, to their souls, to their lives. Sending you so much love. Have the most incredible rest of your day.